Well, good morning and welcome to day 2 of our reading plan through the book of 1 Corinthians. Our reading today is 1 Corinthians 1:18 through chapter 2, verse 5. Now, if you didn't check out Matt's video from yesterday already, I would encourage you to go look at that. I want to remind you of one thing as we start today. You are reading somebody's mail. This is a letter that Paul wrote to a group of early Jesus followers in the city of Corinth. Corinth was a big city, kind of like New York City. It was right at the crossroads of a trade route, so lots of wealth and lots of competing ideas about what's true and what the meaning of life is. So if I intercepted your mail, I would need some context to know what you mean when you email your boss or your child or your wife. I don't know the context. So as I'm reading, I have lots of questions that come to mind. And one of the things I need to be reminded of is that questions don't need to be threatening. Questions are an invitation. So every time I'm talking you through something and I have a question, I'm going to ask, okay, what does this lead me to think is going on in this church? Like, what's the problem that he's trying to solve in writing this letter? So let's use that lens as we tackle today's reading. He opens by saying, "For the word of the cross is folly to those who are perishing, but to us who are being saved, it is the power of God." He goes on to talk about all of these competing ideas. For the Jews, they want signs. For the Greeks, they want wisdom. There's division in the church about these ideas. That's what we can guess is happening in this church. And Paul's answer is, the answer is all about Jesus crucified. It's all about Jesus crucified, the work that God did on the cross. And it's going to sound crazy to us, but it is the power of God. That's where all of the power lies, is in this story that we just told at Easter of Jesus nailed to a cross and rising again. So what is that story? I wonder if you walked into an elevator and somebody said, well, what was the deal at Easter? Like, why did you celebrate that? How would you answer? Here's my best shot. And I'm not making any big claims about this, but in as simple of terms as possible, what we believe that term Christ crucified means is that when Jesus went to the cross, it wasn't just about humans saying, crucify, crucify him, and nailing him to a cross. We believe something was happening in the supernatural heavenly realm, that God in Jesus took on the payment for our sin, mine, yours, Paul's, everybody's. And he paid the debt on the cross that none of us can afford to pay for our sin. Now, what is sin? That's what you might ask. What I would say is it means that none of us get it right. All of us fall short. Not just the big stuff like adultery and murder and deceit, but the little stuff like my selfishness, my greed, my impatience. There's a price to be paid for those things in our relationship with God. And at the cross, it's this mystery of faith. Jesus takes that payment for our sin, the debt I owe, and forgives us. But he didn't stay dead. He actually rose again, which means that he has conquered sin and death. And because he rose again, we will too, breaking all of the power of sin and evil and death over us. Now, that's kind of like my best attempt at being succinct. Paul says, this is folly to the world. And I have to tell you, even as I say it out loud, I think like, oh my gosh, am I crazy for believing this? Why is there a debt to be had for sin? And I believe somebody rose from the dead and that I will too. This is crazy. But if by God's Spirit we believe this is true, everything else in the world changes. Everything about how we discern what is wise and true and good has to be viewed through the lens of Jesus on the cross and rising again. So as you check out for the day, you think about this. I wonder for you first, what questions do you have as you read this passage? What are you learning about the church in Corinth as you go through today's reading? But also, I wonder, just write it out. If somebody said to you, what is Jesus crucified? What does that mean to you? How would you answer? And does it sound crazy, or does it sound like something worth building your life on?